down 3 planes.
8 missions you were lucky, 10 somebody up there liked you, 25 was almost an impossibility.
The plane blew up and I got knocked out.
I'm Bill Patten. I'm 99 years old. My birthday was last Flag Day.
What was your first memory of seeing an airplane and thinking, I want to fly that thing?
Well, actually, I was in college, and I became an aeronautical engineer. In those days, the airplanes were fairly common and not very technical. But after I finished college, I got married, and then I took a job in Wichita, Kansas, at Beach Aircraft in their engineering department. However, I was a liaison between the line and the production line and the engineering department. And in being there, I was able to go up with test pilots every now and then, and I kind of got the urge to fly then. I had not had the urge before then. My wife didn't like that too well, but I then decided that I might be drafted. I wasn't sure at that time what would happen. I noticed that some beach employees were drafted, so I talked it over with my wife and decided that I'd join the Air Corps. Yeah, in 1942, I joined the Air Corps. I was living in Wichita. My wife was in Kansas City, and I'd go back and forth, and we decided that she resisted a little bit me wanting to fly, but I'd gotten a bug from, so I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, and joined the Air Force, Air Corps then. It took about 4 or 5 months before I was called, and I was sent to California. And at that time, you didn't know whether you were going to be a navigator, a pilot, or a bombardier. And I applied for pilot training. And I think because of my background in education as an aeronautical engineer, they accepted it. So they sent me to Phoenix, Arizona, for primary, I guess. Well, it was ground school mostly, and me with an aeronautical engineer, some of those guys didn't even know what a propeller were. I sailed through that pretty easily, and I stayed there. They sent me to Thunderbird Field then, and I was there through primary. I soloed it 8 hours and 15 minutes or something like that. And I did have a little trouble there. That was when my mother was very ill, and I had to return to Kansas City before she died, and they set me back a class. And I was not doing well with my flying. I didn't have a good instructor, I felt. And maybe he was, but he wasn't very sympathetic with my problems. So he put me up for a check ride. And the squadron commander, a major, took me up and went through all the whatever he wanted me to do. And then all of a sudden he cut the engine and he says, find a place to land. And I looked around and luckily there was a dry lake bed there. And so I didn't go all the way down, but I put it pretty close to. And we went back home or to the field, and he said, nothing wrong with you. And so from then on, I kind of sailed through training. I took basic training, which is single engine, in Pecos, Texas. And when I finished, they changed the field to an advanced field, but it was a twin engine. So I stayed there for advanced training. And once you get into multi-engine, you don't get out, I don't think, very well, which was okay.
Well, how did you feel about knowing that you were going to be a bomber pilot and fly heavy, slow planes instead of fast pursuit planes?
I wasn't a hot pilot. The slow planes were, if they brought me back, were as good as anything. I don't think I would have enjoyed a single engine any more than I enjoyed the multi-engine.
What do you remember about the first time you climbed into a B-17?
Well, I wasn't overwhelmed, I don't think. Maybe it was my engineering training that helped me in that respect. It didn't seem like it was that complicated. There were a lot of instrumentation. It was full of instruments, but once you learned them, wasn't much to it. And looking back, I would say that the B-17 brought me home every time. So I was happy I was in it.
Did you have a preference between being assigned to a B-17 versus a B-24?
Well, I didn't know there would be a choice. There wasn't, as far as I know. I think they just assigned me to a B-17. I guess it was Dyersburg, Tennessee. I went to a B-17 base. And then after I got my wings, they sent me to Yuma, Arizona, and I flew B-17, but flew gunners for gunnery practice for, 3 or 4 months. And then I got a crew and went to Lincoln, Nebraska, and then flew a new airplane from Lincoln to Foggia.
When you flew overseas in a brand new aircraft, did you fly over Newfoundland?
Okay. We flew from Lincoln, Nebraska to New Hampshire. And that was the last field before we... But what I'm trying to indicate, we took on some supplies at Manchester, New Hampshire. Someone had told us, when you stop there, get sea rations. And we loaded the airplane with sea rations, and we were glad when we got to Italy that we had them. They were kind of good. But anyway, from there we flew to Gander Field, Newfoundland, and we got weathered in there. We were there about 30 days. It wasn't all the weather at Gander Field that caused it. It was on the flight on over. We flew from there to the Azores and refueled there. And then from there to Marrakech, Morocco. And from there to Tunis. That was an interesting flight. I mean, the Azores, I didn't even know there was such a place. And as backward as it, nothing but oxen pulled two-wheel wagons.
You were able to keep that new aircraft?
No.
Okay, so tell me that story. How did you feel about that?
Well, that's a real tough thing that you don't keep your airplane, and they call you for a combat mission, and there's the airplane you're going to fly. So, but I most of them were mechanically okay. I only had one real bad mission, so I can't say that the system wasn't right. I think it was.
Well, what happened on that one bad mission?
The one bad mission was to Regensburg, Germany. There's, I think, 5 ball bearing plants there, and we were hitting them quite regularly. And they put in, I don't know how many guns they had. Must have had 500 there protecting it. And we went in, and I don't know what happened. It seemed to me that the lead plane, when he come off the target, he went with a real tight turn, and the rest of us then got all scattered. And I got hit. I think number 3 engine went out, and I tried to stay up with the formation, and the number 2 engine wasn't performing up to what it should. And so I was losing altitude, and I couldn't stay up. So I called for fighter protection, and I got 2 red tails, and they kept on me until we got to the Adriatic Sea, and they said, you won't have any trouble from here on. So I was able to get back. But that was my worst mission. I got shot up pretty badly.
Well, you were fortunate to have the red tails.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So was everybody really happy having the red tails, and did they know that it was a Negro squadron, or was there any reputations about that?
I don't recall anything about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As far as I know, they made a name for themselves, and they deserved every bit of what they did.
Yeah.
So,
what are your responsibilities?
well, fly the airplane. I was co-pilot for 5 missions, I think, and then became first pilot. But either one was, you had a lot to do. But, and in formation flying, sometimes the co-pilot had more flying, depending on whether he was on one wing or the other. So, as far as being a commander or keeping the crew in line, and I had a good crew. One of them was a little bit he drank a little bit too much. A couple of times I had to put him under a shower before we could go.
What crew position was that?
He was a navigator, and he was a good navigator. In fact, the squadron commander finally took him away from me, but he just couldn't keep off that Italian wine, I guess.
Tell me about the airfield you were in. You were in recently occupied Italy.
I didn't have any problems at all. I would go into Foggia quite often when I wasn't flying, go to Red Cross, or they had a black market on eggs, and I'd go there once in a while. Although looking back, they would fry them in olive oil, and they were better than nothing, I guess, but they were better than the powdered eggs we get.
What was the weather like in Italy?
It was rain all the time. We were in tents, and it was nothing but mud, and it was not good. The winters in Italy are mostly rainy, I think. But we flew quite a bit. We didn't. There were a few weather days, but we got our missions off pretty well.
Tell me what you remember about flying through flak.
Well, I only saw one piece, and that was a piece that came out of the pilot's knee, and it was about that long and about that wide. And the rest of the flak, well, there's pictures in there of the black smoke that comes from 88. 105 is yellow smoke. But I saw a lot of that. And we'd get holes in our plane. The one mission that I had was really the worst of all. I had engine trouble on other times, but nothing. I couldn't keep up with the formation. So.
Did you ever have to abort a mission because of engine problems or anything?
Well, we aborted quite a few missions. Not, well, once or twice we were in the air and we couldn't get through the ceiling. You know, you get into a cloud and you're flying formation, and it's kind of dangerous.
In England, the 8th Air Force experienced a lot of mid-air collisions due to horrible weather. Did your group experience a lot of mid-air collisions in Foggia, Italy?
England probably had a little different weather than we had, but it wasn't too bad. It rained a lot, but we didn't fly when it rained. But
Well, tell me what it was like going up through the clouds in formation, knowing that you've got guys on your wingtips and right behind you.
well, if you can see the ones that are on your starboard side and so forth, you're okay. The problem is when you get over a target, then the formation doesn't stay. You know, they keep saying, tighten up, but that doesn't happen. And all of a sudden you'll see, and there'll be this Regensburg, I had a plane go right over the top of me. It slid right over the top of me within 25 or 30 feet, which could have been a mid-air collision. Formation flying, especially with a target, is pretty dangerous. They want you to tighten up so that the bomb pattern is where it's supposed to be, but planes get scattered. It's not good in that respect.
Tell me about the Norden bomb site.
I don't know anything about it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, They said that you from 20,000 feet you could put a bomb in a pickle barrel.
Well, maybe you can. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
But not all the planes had the lead plane and the two wingmen. Those had bomb sights on. But I had a bombardier, but sometimes I didn't. He didn't have anything to do other than man a gun. Because they dropped. We really only dropped on when we saw the bombs come out of the lead planes. That's when we dropped.
Yeah.
Did you know anything about the mortality rate of bomber crews when you were overseas?
No. We would know when a plane didn't come back. That they may have died or they may have parachuted. I don't know. Some once or twice we lost planes and the crew had bailed out and walked back. But that was when we were bombing. We'd bomb some in northern Italy sometimes, and where the Germans were fighting.
How did you feel about the B-17 as a plane that could get you home and its dependability and sturdiness?
I preferred it much more than the B-24. I guess the B-24 was a little faster. I don't think it's as stable, but I felt good about being a B-17 pilot rather than a B-24 pilot.
Yeah, I also heard B-17 pilots say that they'd be up at 30,000 feet and the 24s would be at 25,000, which was their ceiling. And the 88s just pounded them, and that was before the 105s. And they say, "I'm so glad I'm not in a B-24." Of course, that changed when they came out with the 105. But
we didn't. Our targets, we didn't see many B-24s. They were somewhere else, I guess.
mm-hmm. I think a lot of them went to the Pacific Theater.
Well, they had quite a few in Italy, but their targets were different than ours.
Describe what your airbase was like in Foggia. I mean, did you have?
Well, when we landed in Foggia, I thought we'd had this brand new airplane that we'd flown from Lincoln, Nebraska. They took that away from us immediately, and we never did we never did have a particular plane. They assigned us to whatever planes were available, I guess. When we landed, it was raining, and they said, "Well, we don't have any accommodations for you. What we'll do is we'll get you a tent, and a tent for the officers and a tent for the guys, and you'll have to put it up." So in the rain, we put up the tent, and it was nothing but mud. The field that had been plowed probably many times, and it was nothing but mud. It was really a mess. We were kind of discouraged with it. And the first night after we froze to death, we didn't have any heat. So I said, we got to get some kind of heat, and they didn't have it. They said, "You'll have to figure out something on your own." So we got a 30, I think it's 30 or 35 gallon grease barrel. Got some copper tubing, and we got a wing tank, and put aviation gasoline in it, and ran this copper tubing to we coiled the inside this barrel. We'd get it lit, and then the heat would condense the gasoline, and we had good heat. Except, boy, it was dangerous. Oh God, tents! I've seen tents just go up in flame, but we were lucky we didn't. I kept telling them, don't light it unless you have to.
Tell me about the food. Was the chow good at on your base?
No. Well, it was what I suppose is the best they could do. But no, it wasn't. The powdered eggs were the worst, for me at least. That's why I'd go in town and try to get some fresh eggs.
Were there any permanent structures there, or was the chow hall and
It was an old farm there, and I guess it would be the farmhouse. They made it the squadron headquarters, and the mess hall. I would say it probably was a dairy farm or something. It was a long building, fairly low, and that was the mess hall. And I suppose that's where they cooked too. I can't remember. And they had a bar, which was an outbuilding of some kind that they'd redone, but it was pretty Spartan. But the mud was, it was terrible. Oh, and the latrines, they built, they built piss tubes, and there was one of those every 3 tents or so. But the toilets were, they built those, and they were just outhouses like. In fact, the one we used kind of faced the highway, which wasn't much, but you catch people on the latrine, and there were Italians out there looking at it. Yeah. I want to tell you about the showers. The showers were, they had some kind of a tank, of a wing tank or something, that they would put up on stilts and load it with water. And the shower head was a tin can with holes in it. So it was about as Spartan as you could get. It wasn't much better than what the infantry might have. And it was cold. It was and miserable. The mud. I on another subject, we had landing mat, steel landing mat, and they weren't very. We had just taken southern part of Italy when I got there, probably 2 or 3 months at the, and so the runways they had smoothed them out and then laid this mat on there, but the rain made them muddy and soft and so forth. We had a terrible time taking off. I've been into the end of the runway and pulling back and hoping it would fly. But you could see in front of you, you'd see that waves in that mat. We lost a couple of planes on takeoff, and that's when they are loaded with bombs, that's a mess.
Were there a lot of B-24s located near you?
The B-24 had a longer range than the B-17, and they were taking out the Ploesti oil fields in Romania, and they got the B-24s were the ones that went in there, and they lost a lot of planes. I just read a book about that. A lot of the crewmen were able to bail out. In fact, there was at one time hidden in Romania and Yugoslavia, there were 500 B-24 crewmen that had been shot down, and they were able to, after a year or so, they were able to make an airfield in Yugoslavia, and they flew C-47s in and picked those guys up. Really interesting book.
Did you get much experience with dodging the enemy?
Well, they gave us 45s, which I probably couldn't hit the side of the house with one, but I guess they were good. No, we didn't get much training in being shot down. We had identifications, and I carried a 45, but you were pretty much on your own, I think. Shot down.
Well, but did they ever tell you try not to surrender to the civilians, try and find a uniformed person?
No.
What do you remember about flying a bunch of chaplains to the Holy Land after the war ended?
We flew fairly low over the desert and saw all the Rommel, where they had pitched battles. Every 50 miles or so, it seemed like there was a bunch of dead soldiers, tanks, and equipment and so forth. We stopped in Cairo, and that was a pretty modern city then. A lot of refugees from Europe, rich refugees. I remember the women were just beautiful. But at the Shepherd's Hotel, which is the big hotel in Cairo. And we were able to as I told you, to see the pyramids and the Sphinx. In fact, I went in a pyramid, but it was so pitch dark you couldn't see anything. From there, we flew to Haifa. We flew over the Suez Canal. Me being a young and a country boy, kind of, this was big stuff for me. The chaplains we took, they when we got to Jerusalem, they had plans, I guess, to go to various places. So I had a crew of 4 on the plane, and we hired a guide, and he took us all around Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It was pretty interesting.
What were your thoughts of the B-17 as a protector and the one that would get you home?
It's a wonderful airplane. I'm sure we did things that you couldn't believe that could be done with an airplane. And one of them was takeoff. And when you had the landing mat wiggling in front of you, knowing that was reducing your speed, you get to the end of the runway and pull her back, and she'd struggle a little bit, but get her off.
Yeah, after the war, did you ever go back to visit?
No, I've been all over Europe but I didn't go back to Foggia. Kind of wish I had. I don't know what it would have been like. It's back to being agriculture, I imagine. I did about everything that could be done. I went to Isla Capri. I went to Rome. So I saw all of like a tourist would. After the war, I went to, my wife and I, we rented a car and went all over Switzerland and Germany. And then we took a cruise from England to Russia. So I've on my own, I've pretty well covered the European area. And I made a flight, not a flight, but a trip to Africa. This was a deal where they were starting a university over there, and they were wanting money, but they wanted us, the ones that they were trying to tap for money, they wanted us to see what they had over there. So we flew to Kenya and saw the facility and so forth. I put two African kids through school, so it was worth it.
Did you keep up your pilot's license and fly any after the war?
My wife wouldn't let me. And I know she probably went through hell during the war, and I didn't push it too much. I did when I moved out to Deer Lake. There was a doctor that I got acquainted with that was involved in the glider club here, and he was pushing very hard for me to do gliders, but I wasn't too interested. I didn't want to push my luck that much.
Tell me how you feel like you got through the war. Was it dumb luck or good training or your faith, or what was it that brought you through the war?
Well, good training for one, but I guess faith was not involved, because I would go on a mission and I would pray to God, and I was not baptized at the time. I promised him I would if I came back, I would, and I did. And I'm a pretty good Methodist now. I go to church every Sunday, and I work in the church, and so I think the promise that I had given him, I fulfilled.
Yeah, and he watched out for you too. All right.